All right. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to the webinar regarding GA4 alternatives. Thanks for being here. Just to give you a quick heads up, this session will be around 15 to 20 minutes. We've kept it short. There will be plenty of room for Q&A at the end of the session. Um, if you hear a little crackle in my voice, I'm having a cold, so my apologies for that. But without further ado, let's get started and let's get acquainted first. Who is talking to you at this moment? My name is Glenn. I'm the head of marketing technology at our campus in Herentals. I've been working for IO and previously in Tracto for over 8 years. And now I'm responsible for 3 different teams. Now, the presentation title, G4 Alternatives. Now, why are we talking about this? We're seeing a lot of new changes regarding analytics. So we'll be discussing why are we using analytics tools, what are some things to keep or to take into account, and also which tools are out there that might be a viable alternative to GA4 now that there are some legal or GDPR issues regarding data being sent to the US. So let's start with the question, why are we using analytics tools? I'm guessing most of you are currently using Universal Analytics or you have been using it in the past. Now, why have you done that? Now, typically, there are 3 things why companies are using analytics tools. First of them is performance tracking. So, analytics tool allows you to basically track your KPIs and different metrics that are relevant to your business. If you can measure and analyze those metrics, you will be able to assess your performance. You might also spot some bottlenecks on your website or inefficiencies, and of course, take action on those things. And performance tracking can be seen really broadly. Some people or some companies mainly use analytics to improve their website themselves, which content is being engaged with or not. But we also have several companies who might use it to assess the effectiveness of their marketing campaigns. For example, you're running a Google Ads campaign or a Facebook Ads campaign. By using UTM tags, you will see that data coming into your analytics tool. Secondly, analytics tool can also be used to get a better understanding of your customers. That typically is when you're trying to reach your target audience, which type of content are they engaging with on your website. You'll also be able to create segments in your analytics tool to maybe reach them at a later point in time. And of course, the main goal of that is really understanding your customer, increasing their satisfaction with your platforms, and increasing your conversion rates. And then finally, we also see that companies are using analytics tools for data-driven decision making, which is quite a vague term. But of course, once you start collecting data from your website, from your campaigns, you will be able to analyze that data and get some valuable insights within customer behavior, perhaps some market trends, whatever is happening on your website. And you will use that data maybe to, for example, adjust your campaign budgets because you're seeing that Facebook is converting or Facebook traffic is converting much better than your Google Ads traffic, for example. Now, in the past, Universal Analytics, I think we can safely say it's the most well-known analytics tool, had an 85% market share, which is quite huge. Now, of course, we all know Universal Analytics is ending. For those of you who have recently logged into your Universal Analytics property, you might have seen something like this, a huge countdown clock telling you should migrate to GA4. And of course, many of you will already have done that, hopefully. But of course, migrating by default to GA4 might not be the ideal approach in this case. Why is that? We have something called GDPR. They just had their 5th year anniversary. And of course, some countries or some regions in the European Union are banning Google Analytics. Now, maybe to give a bit of an example, countries like France, Italy, Austria, they've all banned it already. There are other countries such as the Netherlands that are looking into it, if it should actually be banned. And it's not per definition a problem of using Google Analytics. The main issue here is that you're using an American tool, which is Google Analytics, and you're capturing data from European citizens if you're active in the EU, of course. And at this point, there is no legal framework in place that allows this kind of data transfer from the EU to the US. The person you see on the screen, she's the Ursula von Leyen. They are going to create a new framework for EU to US data transfers. They discussed it last year, and it will be launched somewhere in this summer, hopefully. But of course, we all know that there are some persons, for example, Max Schrems, who is actually responsible for the whole diminishment of the previous data transfer privacy shield. Of course, he will go to court immediately. So, yeah, using an American tool which stores data on American soil might not be an ideal solution for your analytics tools or for your tool stack in general. So now we know that using Google Analytics or GA4 might not be ideal or might not even be legal in the future. Let's take a look at some possible solutions, some other alternatives that are based in Europe or that can be used in Europe as well. Now, if we take a look at the analytics landscape, you'll see that there are a lot of tools that are active in the marketing analytics and web analytics landscape. There's just too much to go over them all, which is why we at IO, we defined 4 viable alternatives depending on what your needs are. And the first alternative I would like to discuss is the one at the top left. It's called Matomo. Matomo Analytics is a European alternative to Google Analytics. It's mainly used by government agencies. And yeah, why should a company or why would a company choose Matomo? In regards of privacy, Matomo is the most privacy-friendly alternative to Google Analytics that we know of. There might be one issue with Matomo. We always compare the interface of Matomo to Windows 95. It's really outdated, and on regards to integrating with other tools such as Google Ads, for example, Matomo isn't an ideal solution. Below that, we have Piano Analytics. Piano Analytics is a pretty new player in the market. You might know them as AT Internet. They were called that in the past. Now, Piano Analytics is really for enterprise clients. They don't have a offering for SMEs. You immediately will have to pay quite a hefty license in order to start using them. This is the platform out of those 4 with the most capabilities of all. But for most companies, at least here in Belgium, they will have just too many functionalities that you will never use. And it would be a bit silly, of course, to get a huge license and only use maybe a quarter of all the functionalities that they offer. Then at the top right, we have Pivik Pro. Fun fact, Matomo and Pivik Pro used to be the same company, but they split a couple of years ago. Now, Pivik Pro, for us, is for most of our clients who are thinking about moving away from a Google tool stack, is the ideal solution. It's pretty scalable. The user interface looks quite similar to what you will see in Universal Analytics and what most people will have been used to working with. And also, they are really working on getting some more integration capabilities within the platform. They also have their own consent management platform. They have their own CDP, their own tech management system. So out of these four, Pivik is the most well-rounded, that is also suited for smaller companies. And they also offer a free plan. I think it's up to 500,000 actions per month. So some of our clients or some of you might still fall within the 3 tier. So there's no license fee that needs to be paid, which is the case with Peano and also with Matomo. And then finally, we have Mixpanel. This might be the odd one out. Mixpanel is actually an American company. They're based in San Francisco, but it's possible with them to select a EU data residency, so your data will be stored in the EU, which should solve the whole GDPR issue. Mixpanel out of the four, the most, how should I call it, visual impressive tool of them all. But regarding data integrations, they still lack some functionalities in our opinion. Now that we know those four alternatives, which one is ideal for you? And sad to say, there's no one size fits all solution. There is a process that needs to be followed in order to make sure that you are deciding on which tool is the most well suited tool for your basic needs, or your basic analytics needs at least. So, how should we choose your ideal analytics solution? Now, this typically consists of a process of 4 different steps. And what we always try to do is start with the requirements. And this will be different for each company. One of the requirements, for example, could be, should the tool be EU based or not? For example, you might work at a company which is US based. Then there's no real need at this point to have an EU based tool, of course. Some other requirement could be, okay, the different functionalities that the platform offers. Which are we using at this moment in Universal Analytics in GA4? How easy to use is the platform? For example, I told you that Matomo has a Windows 95 interface, while Mixpanel has a very intuitive and really fresh, visually fresh interface. So it really depends on how you will be using the tool. For example, if you just use your analytics platform as a data collection framework or data collection tool, and you push all your data to a dashboarding solution such as Looker Studio or Power BI, for example, then the interface of the tool itself doesn't really matter. If you have your own internal marketeers, for example, who are looking at analytics on a daily or weekly basis, then of course a nice interface could very well be helpful. And then also, of course, not all of these tools are free. So what will be the total cost of ownership? And total cost of ownership, not only the license will have to be taken into account there, but you also have to maybe hire a person that is suited for analytics work, who can implement the tool, or you'll have to reach out to an agency or to an external partner who might implement and analyze the data for you. Then, second of all, after you've mapped the requirements, it could also be helpful to take a look at the integration capabilities. And again, really differs from company to company. Some companies want to integrate their analytics data with or within their CRM, or want to have a connection with their advertising tools. So you'll have to really check, okay, which is the ideal solution for us in this case. And also, some of these tools offer out-of-the-box integrations. For example, Pivik Pro has a Google Ads integration, just as easy as doing it in Google Analytics. But some of the tools might also offer custom integrations, so that a more technical profile, a developer who knows his APIs, can also start building his own integrations. So it really depends on what the use case will be for your analytics tool, and try to decide on that, okay, which will be our ideal vendor, which takes us to the third step. And this typically takes the longest in the whole process. Typically, you would want to compare at least three different possible vendors, which means reaching out to them, maybe requesting some demos or trial accounts to get to know the platform. And then, of course, once you've had a complete overview of what's possible within the different tools, then you'll need to decide on which platform you will start using. And then finally, the most straightforward step, I think, is the actual implementation of the tool. And here also, an implementation, you might be tending to just implement it right away. But of course, an implementation analytics tool will take some time. You'll also be using it for some time, so first time right is really of essence here. So really try to get your KPI definition on point, create a measurement plan which basically outlines all the different settings that are active within your new analytics tool, and then you can start working on the actual tracking setup and maybe also on your dashboarding setup. Now, of course, with the actual implementation of your analytics tool, you have some possibilities. What we see and what we basically took from the whole Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4 migration is that some companies might run different analytics platforms on their websites at the same time, which is perfectly viable. You could do the same with your US-based Google Analytics platform and your EU-based, for example, Pivik. It's perfectly possible to do that because the whole process of implementing everything perfectly will take some time, but of course you want to make sure that you already can start collecting some basic data such as page views, for example, in your EU-based alternative. So the implementation of your new analytics tool is just the start. We've seen again with the whole Universal Analytics to GA4 migration that getting to know a new tool is not that easy. We've seen that a lot of companies and also internally with some account managers, for example, who aren't using the tool that much, that getting to know the tool, finding the right reports for them can take some time. So again, here we have a 5-step plan on how you should make sure that the adoption of your new analytics tool is on point, which steps need to be taken. So first step, the implementation that typically gets done by some analytics profile, then integrating your new analytics tool with, for example, your CRM, depending on your needs and your requirements. The third step is communicating to all your internal stakeholders that you're actually starting to use a new analytics tool. And then, of course, training those people. Now, some of these tools, for example, Piano, they offer product trainings. Really depends on what your deal is with Piano or with another alternative. But this is the step that tends to be forgotten most often. If there's no one in your company who actually understands what's happening in the new analytics tool, then it's just pointless of having it. So going back to the three main reasons why we are using our analytics tools, the performance tracking, for example. If no one knows how to actually track the performance with your new tool, it's pointless. And of course, the final step will be the full adoption of the tools. So your marketeers, your internal stakeholders will really will start using the tool actually, and will start building reports on the new data that's coming through the alternative. All right. I told you around 20 minutes. Does anyone have any specific questions regarding some of the tools I highlighted during presentation regarding the process that should be followed when choosing a new analytics tool? If you have, please let me know in the chat. Someone asks, which have a tech manager and consent module. Matomo and Pivik do have a tech management and consent module, but that doesn't mean that you should use the tech manager from Matomo or Pivik, for example. We have one client, for example, that uses his tech manager for not only his analytics tracking but also for his Facebook, his Hotjar, all his marketing scripts. And yeah, migrating towards Pivik in their case would be very time consuming. So the decision was made to keep using the Google Tech Manager that they're using right now. And also their consent module, which is OneTrust, if I remember correctly, just to save some time. Because by default, Google Tech Manager in itself doesn't place any cookies. It really depends on which scripts are you adding within the Tech Manager. So using Google Tech Manager isn't an issue. And then another question, are all of these options server-side? Really depends on how you would define server-side. If you take a look at how server-side tracking works within the Google ecosystem, is that you just create an own server and redirect your traffic towards it. For example, Matomo and Pivik, they offer on-premise solutions, which is your own server, which could also be seen as this is being tracked server-side. So it really depends on how you would define server-side tracking. But most of these solutions will support it in some way or another, depending on the tool. Question, are cookie banners required for all the options? If not, which one is the nicest if wanting to avoid cookie banners? Ideally, and it's not just a privacy issue, but just asking for consent just should be done always, even if it's not required by law, because you want to be transparent towards your customers. But do know that some of these tools offer cookieless tracking, which would mean that in theory you're not required to ask consent because you're not using any cookies to store data, which of course severely impacts the kind of traffic you're also using, or the kind of traffic or the kind of data that you're capturing from those visitors. So you will only see page views, for example, and some interactions, but sessions will not be measured, for example. What's the consequence for a Dutch company if they continue to use GA4? Depends on if there's a ruling towards that specific company. At this point, there are guidelines that outline, okay, we don't think that using Google Analytics is privacy compliant, so you shouldn't use it. Of course, it's your own personal choice to follow that guideline. We can only say it's up to you. We advise to take into account that there are also other alternatives that are more privacy compliant. But as long as there is no specific ruling towards a specific company and they should stop using it, then they in theory could continue using GA4. Is the best solution? No, not at all. Is Mixpanel a waterproof GDPR compliant option? Does not have the same issue as GA4 being a US based company processing EU user data. They are compliant because they are storing their data, or they have an option to store your data in a EU data center, which by default makes it GDPR compliant. Then will GA4 be completely GDPR compliant in the EU, or will it also be restricted in France, Austria? At this moment, GA4 is not GDPR compliant in the EU. currently, the different countries such as France and Austria, they have the power to, interpret the GDPR framework in their own way. Um, and in France and in Austria and also in the Nordics, they are now deciding, okay, we don't think that Google is legal uh, with regard to the GDPR framework. Um, I think it will start cascading to other regions or other countries as well. So better save than sorry and start migrating towards an GDPR compliant tool in advance. Then I have also the chat. Would you push for a switch to a UI-based platform, or would you wait and see what the outcome about Google Analytics would be? It really depends on what your view is on what the potential impact would be if you suddenly should start moving to an alternative. For example, let's say that on the 1st of July, Belgium decides, okay, it's also illegal here to use Google Analytics 4. Then you will be taken by surprise and you'll have to rush your implementation towards a new platform. I think it's better to start taking some safety measures already and be prepared to migrate towards a new analytics tool which is compliant. If we currently stay with GA4, is that okay GDPR-wise for data from France, Austria, etc., or will this also be restricted in the future? Really depends on you as a company. Are you a French company, an Austrian company, or a Belgian company, for example? But again, here GA4 is not a GDPR compliant tool, so better safe than sorry, and try to be ahead of the curve. All right. Any other questions? What about Google's market share of 85%? Conclusion: EU clients are not important enough for Google. Now, the market share is globally, and those are numbers of a couple of years ago. I would think that the European market should be important enough for Google, but it really depends on what they decide on what their interpretation and what their solution would be. For example, you might have heard a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days ago even, Meta received quite a huge fine, also for transferring data to the US. They had a different interpretation of the framework. So I would guess that the legal team from Google and the tech giants alike will always try to find some kind of potential loophole in the rulings of GDPR or other frameworks that might pop up in the future. Because of course, for them it's much more costly to create a fully GDPR compliant solution because they're still US based, so they might have to split off a different section of their company and make it a EU company, for example. So I'm guessing it's wait and see in that case. Benjamin, I fully agree. What Google is going to do is to push the responsibility to the agencies and to the end users. They're not going to solve this themselves. All right. If there are no further questions for now, I would like to thank you for your time. Should you have any questions, my email address is on the screen. You will also be sent the presentation later today. So if you have any questions by then, please let me know. And otherwise, thank you for watching and joining, and enjoy your day. Thank you.